Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to tonight's second half. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under this video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. It really does help, and it definitely matters. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with tonight's second half, shall we? So, this is going to be the first half of tonight's second half. That sounds funny. Now, I just wanted to talk to you guys about something, and I wanted to do it face to face with you. The other day, I had made a video and where I shared with you guys a couple of clips that were put online and people 100% thought they were real because others were saying, hey, these are real. Now, I also said that with the platform that I have, I feel it only right to allow anyone who says they have an experience to come on and share. It does not necessarily mean that I believe that experience. I'm offering a platform for someone to share their experience without any ridicule or out any judgment. All right. Now, I don't like drama, and I don't particularly care for a lot of what's going on in the community. I have one dear friend that is in the community, and his name's Dark Waters. I call him James. Because James is probably one of the most honest people I've ever met in this community and outside of. And I've learned a lot from him about interviewing people and meeting people on this platform, YouTube. Now, as far as who I am, I have been exploring and trying to understand the paranormal, the spiritual, and all of that for a long, long time. I was introduced when I was 16 years old to a book called the Urantia Foundation, or the Urantia. And I actually encourage anyone who can find a hard copy of it or a soft copy, but the hardcover is probably the best, to get that book because it truly is amazing. It holds a lot of knowledge. And then after that, at still 16, I was introduced to Aleister Crowley and magic, alchemy. My grandfather was a Freemason. I have his Bible. I have his ring when he passed. The reason why I have the Eye of Horus on my neck. And I have just been exploring and trying to understand everything I can for the longest time. I've had paranormal experiences. I've had a cryptid experience. I've had spiritual experiences. I was on the reservation in Hogansburg, New York, the Aquasatchi Reservation. And I was at a sweat lodge. We were using rocks from Mount St. Helen. And it was me, two family members, and a friend of another family member. There was 4 of us. And my cousin and I were in the back of the lodge. And my uncle and his friend were by the door. Now, if you don't know what a sweat lodge is, it's a small kind of domed enclosure, usually built with sticks kind of overlapping each other into a dome, and then just blanketed with wool blankets, whatever kind of really blankets you can get to keep that heat in. And we were using rocks from Mount St. Helen, and it was a very spiritual experience. It was I've sweat numerous times in my life, but this one was very, very strange, but very awakening, I guess. We got done with like the first round and went outside to kind of breathe. And I guess the best way I could explain a sweat lodge is you're in like a very small enclosed sauna. So we get out and we are just, it's cold out, it's snow on the ground, but we're not cold because we're just in that very warm atmosphere. Prior to everything, I of course I took it seriously, but I was with my cousin and we were kids, like 16, 17, still going to the mall trying to pick up girls. And so we get back in and we're sitting there and I look over, and this time it's my uncle and his friend are in the back and me and my cousin are in the front. And I look and there's another guy in the sweat lodge with us in between my uncle and his friend. And I'm like, whoa, where'd he come from? And then I was like, you know what? Me and my cousin were talking. Maybe I just didn't see him come in. So that was done. We got done with the sweat. We got out. And we're kind of drying off, talking. And I said, hey, where's the guy? And they were like, who? I said, your friend. He's in there. I thought maybe he had a heart attack or something because he was very old looking. The Jeff, there was no one else there. There was just us 4. And I looked down into the sweat lodge. There was no one there. And what I gathered from that was probably like the spirits or the spirit of those rocks from Mount St. Helen. Maybe Salish native or Somish. Definitely a very, very powerful moment in my life. One that I will never forget, ever. And I question everything. I really do. I know that people have made Reddit posts about me because of certain guests I've had on. And that I buy everything everybody tells me. That's not the truth. And I don't have to explain myself to anybody because, like I said in another upload, that same upload that I shared videos with you guys, it's nearly impossible to vet somebody that says they had an encounter because unless you were there, how do you know? Now, this is going to be difficult because I hate drama. But I hate lies even more than drama. And I saw a subscriber had sent me a link to a video today. I watched it quickly. And the second I clicked on it and I saw whose channel it was, I snickered to myself. Because almost a year ago today, or a year ago, around this time a year ago, I had actually made a video in regards to a video they had made too. And I think that people in this community take people for their word too often without questioning, without seeing credentials. You know, you got too many people saying that they were special ops, ex-SWAT team detectives when they were a bailiff. Contractors when they weren't. And I think people say that stuff or do that stuff is so they can either they have some sort of mental issue or they think that they will be taken more serious. I'm just a guy, a single dad, living in a 3-bedroom apartment above a closed dental office, raising my 2 daughters, and making videos every day. That's all I am. That's all who I am. I'm letting you know who I am. I'm nobody important. I'm like you. You guys are important. I'm not saying like you're not. Everyone's important, but I'm just like you guys. And I think that when people eventually find out that there's so much deceit in this community, what's going to happen is that no one's going to be taken serious, and it's terrible. It's terrible. It really is. And I want you to think about something. If a creator puts a video, and I'm going to be as gentle as possible, and I'm not calling out the channel, and I'm not calling out any channel. I just want people to think. I really want people to really think about things and question everything. Because it's the only way we will not be sheep anymore is when we question everything. I don't care who tells us. If someone puts out a upload and states that they are ex-military or X3 alphabet agency, and then states that an agency is seeking money to close down a program, you don't seek money to close down a program. You seek money to broaden that program, to push that program further. If you have a program and it's going on, you can close it very easily. And then to put in a couple of pictures that have already been fraudulent or already been called out as, God, what are they called? Props for movies and stuff. It's honestly disgusting. It's one thing to have people come on your channel and share information, but then when someone who runs the channel blatantly lies. And it's not just any one channel. I'm kind of putting them all, I'm putting a lot in a bucket here. Because there are a lot of good channels out there. There are a lot of great creators out there that are just like you and I, that just want the truth, to really just want to seek the truth. But then when you have those ones that almost want to appear like they know everything, they are all knowing, don't question them. Why? Because, look at me. I used to work for the man. I had a badge at one time that said 3-letter alphabet, or you know what I'm saying. It's disturbing, and it's a mockery. So I'm saying this to you as your friend and as a fellow researcher. Question everything, because if you don't, you're still a sheep. If you don't stand and look at everything and look at it with both sides, put your blinders on, and one side is for and one side is against. I think Zach Baggett's is an absolute toolbox, but I agree with the way that he goes about his ghost hunts. He debunks before he ever says this is a haunting. He'll go in and look for the most obvious, or even the smallest explanation. Like scratching on the wall. Guess what? Your siding has a nail and it's scratching against the wood of the house, and that's the scratch. Question everything. Please, don't fall victim. And just honestly, that if we all question everything and we stop looking like we will accept everything without questioning, the flakiness will come off of us. That's how the UFO community really became taken serious. They were like, all right, well, I'm going to question everything because there's so many fraudulent videos, fraudulent photographs, fraudulent this out there. So let's question everything. And then 50 years later, look where the UFO community is. Now you've got the government coming out and saying, yes, there are alien ships, not alien. They will never say alien. What they'll say is there are unidentified flying objects, yes, UAPs. And then there are some military ones. So that's what we really need to do. We need to first of all, we need to unite. And then we need to move forward and question everything. And not worry about feelings. Because we can do it when we question things. We can do it nicely, and we don't have to hurt and walk on people. But it's a necessity to get to the truth, guys. So I guess that's it. But let's not fall victim, because if people would just... Okay, yeah, so it'd be like if I made a video stating today that I had evidence that the local PD shot a Dogman, and is now asking for money for help and assistance, but then I turned the comment section off. Why? That's a big question. It's a big red flag, right? Most definitely. All right. That's enough of that. Let's get on to the second half. And today's second part of the upload is a military and government cover-up with multiple versions. You guys decide which one you like. A U.S. Army patrol encounters a red-haired 12-foot giant man in a remote Kandahar province. A soldier opens fire, but is killed by the beast. The giant is eventually killed and transported away by a helicopter. In 2002, a U.S. Army patrol went missing in a very remote area of Kandahar province, Afghanistan. Another patrol was dispatched on a search and rescue mission. One soldier commented on what they had found. As we bent around this corner, you could see the opening of the cave. And then I see a lot of rocks, which is another oddity. Then bone matter. I'm not close enough to identify what kind of bones, but I did see what I knew to be a piece of our communications equipment. So instantly we were thinking ambush, maybe animal, it could be anything. There was enough room in front of the cave, but it had a sheer drop-off. There was enough room that we got into a decent dispersal in case of an ambush. Not long after they had gotten into that dispersal formation, they saw something emerge from that cave that caught them fully off guard. It was a man at least 12 to 15 feet in height. This is a monster, red beard. His hair was longish past his shoulders, scarlet red. Dan runs at him and starts shooting, which breaks all of us into reality because it was surreal. While Dan is moving at him, another brother of mine is lying down fire and I start firing. He skewers Dan. He's got him on this pike. It went right through him. He's got him and he's coming after more. We all just clicked in. I don't know what it was, but I remember we were all like, shoot him in the face. Shoot him in the face. He's taken multiple hits and he's still moving. Eventually, the giant was killed. A helicopter soon arrived and dragged some cargo netting. A large helicopter came by, dropped a hook, and the giant was carried off. The soldier confirmed that the red-haired, fair-skinned giant had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. After they had submitted their report, the soldier recounts that they were told by their top brass to edit it in particular fashion, presumably to remove any mention of the giant being. Another special operations soldier in Afghanistan provides the following testimony to the incident, even though he was not a direct witness to the incident. We would come back to the base and start hearing this rumor about a unit that had killed this, what they started calling this really tall person. At first, I didn't really think anything of it. Then came to find out that this person they had killed was actually 3 times the size of a man, had extra digits on their hands and extra digits on their feet, had red hair, and a special unit had come in and wanted this target. Well, we had heard that they had killed this thing inside a cave or the mouth of the cave, and there was common knowledge among the military to hear this. When you first hear it, you're thinking like, this has got to be a joke, right? This has got to be a hoax. Then after things go down a certain way and you keep hearing it, you start to realize that this is no joke. This pilot had landed at the base in Afghanistan and was told that they had to pick up special cargo and that there were absolutely no cameras allowed. The pilot describes the cargo. It was basically a dead guy, and this guy was extremely large. And when I say large, our pallets are basically, if I remember correctly, about 9 by 12 feet or so. This guy was lying in a fetal position on the pallet, and he filled that entire pallet. He was around 1,100 pounds. The pilot corroborated much more of the details given by the other two witnesses, including the fact that this giant was fair-skinned, red-haired, and had extra digits on its hand and feet. My brother, John, who retired as a United States Army lieutenant colonel, told me that when he retired and was working at the VA, a retired service member at the VA confirmed the 15-foot-tall, red-haired giant. The Army tried to conceal this incident, but they could not, as over 100 people had seen the giant, both before it was killed and later brought back to Bagram Air Force Base. The creature's skin was so thick that the bullets seemed to have not even been able to penetrate it. They shot it in its head and face. That's how they killed it. The first Army troopers that encountered it were all killed by the creature, with their gear left untouched on the ground. The bones were of some of the soldiers in the first detachment, as some had been devoured. After they killed the giant, the Army sent in a helicopter to pick it up and fly it back to the base. The pallet used to place the giant on was about 12 feet long, so they had to put the body on the pallet in a fetal position in order for it to fit. They were also concerned about its weight, and if it was too heavy to lift and fly away with. Many people and soldiers at that airfield saw it. The Army also found a number of grave sites which had other giants buried in them from perhaps long ago. One of the skeletons was supposedly sent to the Smithsonian Museum in D.C., where it was stored. My brother also knows that Bigfoot encounter at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and Fort Lewis, Washington. There was also a battle that occurred between the Special Army unit from Fort Belvoir, Virginia, that hunted and killed 7 Bigfoot that were killing and devouring people. I was an officer in the United States Air Force and worked in the intelligence community. I'm aware of some of the UFO incidents not exposed or made public, and about the Black Project program that recovers crashed UFOs. In the early 90s, I was with the teams in the Navy. We were sanctioned by an alphabet government agency to put a stop to several aggressive Sasquatch in the high country in western North Carolina. We all thought it was a joke at the mission briefing, but it was no joke. My partner in our team of 12 was my swim buddy. He was Native American. This man was not scared of anything. Before we were ordered to go out during the briefing, all of these agents were showing us slides of what these creatures did to people, adults and children alike, as well as the damage done to vehicles and homes. Anyway, my buddy turned white in sheer fear. He told me, "This is bad, really bad." When we arrived in this little mountain village town, the sheriff had met us. He told us that he had never been so happy to see the cavalry since he had been in Korea. He showed us the actual places where, as he put it, this is where those effers, those big hairy demons, destroyed this, or killed him, her, them, there. My buddy was taking everything in, like I had never seen him before. After talking with the sheriff, our lieutenant told us to fire up because we're going hunting. As we were getting our gear ready, my buddy said to me, "You know, I always thought my grandfather was just telling us scary stories about him and his brothers when they fought these wild men." We started in at around 1400. By 1600, we had found lots and lots of tracks. We started tracking them. We made out at least 7 different individuals. We made first contact at around 1930. It was almost dark. The point man stopped dead in his tracks and spoke into his headset. "I see one. He's effing huge." The lieutenant said, "If you have a shot, take it." He shot this massive hairy beast with a 7.62 millimeter round, and it acted like a mosquito had bit him. The creature turned around and let out this god-awful roar. Our point man quickly switched to full auto, and this time the creature dropped like a rock after 10 7.62 millimeter rounds cut up into his chest. After first contact, the agents radioed in and said they wanted one alive. Our lieutenant told them to screw themselves. It took 3 days and nights with almost no sleep, but we dropped 7 hairy bastards. We found the missing people, or rather what was left of them. We had 1 casualty when a team member was snatched straight up into a tree. There was nothing anyone could have done. To this day, thinking about those 3 days sends chills down my spine. You won't find those 3 days in any military record or mission log. Going into our mission debriefing, where normally we are asked 1,001 questions about every shot fired, every angle we fired from, every angle we fired on, etc. We were simply told that the past 3 days we're doing rigorous mountain training, and during that training period we lost a man, and with that the debriefing team stood up and walked out. Now, normally we have individual debriefing for the whole team, but this was the one and only time it was just a team. So to answer your next question, after 3 days, government agents came in and removed all 7 corpses and flew them out. Now, this account is not my own, but was told to me by a Marine doing combat tours in Afghanistan. For the sake of his own job and security clearance, he asked me that I not give any names and never mention what region they were operating in. From my understanding, the individuals who were with him during the encounter were from a task force operating under orders from the CIA. Beyond that, I was told next to nothing. I will refer to him as Sarge, if only to have a name. During a patrol checking on some local farmers, Sarge's unit was made aware of a deadly being living in a cave system near their farms. When pushed for more information, the locals were only willing to say that this being was stealing from their farms and had killed a few people who had made the mistake of trying to protect their livelihood from it. Convinced the locals were being harassed by a group of Taliban fighters, half of Sarge's unit was sent out to investigate and either arrest or kill any hostile force in the area. So, with a few Humvees armed with M2 machine guns, they went out to the cave where the mysterious being supposedly lived. Upon arrival, they noticed nothing of interest. There were signs that something was living in the cave, and the soldiers found animal bones scattered around the entry. Not wanting to risk his entire unit fighting in the cave that the enemy would know very well, Sarge sent his 2 fastest Marines to investigate. The 2 men just gave the others a cocky grin and thumbs up before disappearing into the darkness beyond the mouth of the cave. For 10 minutes there was nothing, not a single sound inside or out of that cave other than the idle chatter of the bored Marines. Then sound erupted from the cave, shouting and screaming. In a matter of seconds, the 2 men emerged from the cave at full run and zipped past their teammates, one of them shouting, "Run, just run!" But, like the hard-ass special force operators they were, the other soldiers stood their ground, only to see a massive man emerge from that cave. He stood nearly 10 feet tall, with leathery skin and red hair. In one of its massive hands was a log that it began waving at the soldiers in a very obviously threatening manner. Shocked but not panicked, Sarge commanded his men to shoot the MFer, and 12 Marines opened fire, but the bullets seemed to be doing little to nothing but upsetting the giant. Finally, in desperation, one of them fired a grenade launcher, blowing out a massive chunk of its flesh, exposing a small portion of its ribs and ripping most of the skin to the muscle. The giant retreated into the cave, and the soldiers decided the best thing to do was head back to the village and report to the rest of their unit. Clearly, this was more than a few Taliban militants. Even with that gaping wound, that giant was too terrifying for the Marines to willingly walk into its territory. So, they headed back and reported to their CO. Of course, their boss didn't believe them and demanded to see proof. So that night, they drove him out to the cave, showed him some of the shredded flesh that had been blown off by the grenade launcher. From here, the report went up the chain, and nobody knows what was done about the creature. I wish he would have told me more. From what I managed to find out on my own, accounts like these are not uncommon in this part of the Middle East, of course, since all of these reports were word of mouth stories. I don't know how factual they are, or if they are even being exaggerated. All right, guys, perfect example of military government cover-up, right? Perfect. The Cott County, Tennessee case that I covered when it happened, perfect example of local and state cover-up. So, anyway, I hope you all enjoyed tonight's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to say thank you for all your support, and may the Great Spirit watch over us all, and may He guide us down that path that we call life.